Excellency, honorable ministers and members of the press. Allow me, sir, to first thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with members of the press. Present here today, we have senior members of local, regional, and a few international media. Sir, with your permission, we're ready to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir. As agreed, members of the press, we will be taking one question per individual. Please introduce yourselves and keep your questions short and concise. Please raise your hand and we shall proceed. Kenneth of the New Times.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, my name is Kenneth Agutam, I write for the New Times. It's an honor to be here. I have one question. It's in regard with the Friday's referendum, which was historic and widely celebrated by Rwandans, but internationally it was condemned, criticized, and a few others who have ridiculed it. Now, I have one question. To the Rwandans who voted overwhelmingly to remove constitutional term limits, what's your message to them? And to the critics abroad, what's your answer to them? Thank you very much.
Mr. President, sorry,
Yeah,
sir.
let me take one by
Yes.
one, otherwise they accumulate.
Okay, sir.
So to the Rwandans, I think I said what I said yesterday. I have really nothing more to add. They chose to do what they did. They seem to be happy with it. And good for them. They should be happy with what they choose to do. For the outside, they may also continue being unhappy with what Rwandans chose to do. If that is good for them, they should be happy with it too. But we all have our lives to live, and we have the right to choose how we live our lives as nations, as societies, or even as individuals. Rwandans are not going to live their lives according to the choices of outsiders. And I don't think it is all outsiders. It's some of those who think they determine how they live their lives and they determine how others live their lives as well. In other words, they seem to appropriated themselves to the fact that they can actually live their own lives and live other people's lives at the same time. But that's okay. I have no quarrel with anyone as long as I think Rwandans know what they want and they continue doing the best for themselves. We Rwandans will continue doing so. And there is not, but I see a lot of contradiction as well in that. Like I was reading, I think, was it Time magazine or something, and had written that the majority of Rwandans have chosen a dictatorship. I think that is giving dictatorship a good name. Probably they are making that mistake without knowing that they are making a mistake. Because if a dictatorship means, one, the choice of people, two, if a dictatorship produces some of the things we had earlier that I repeated, it's about security, safety, stability, It's about women empowerment. It's about people living together where the past has been terrible and different. It's about progress being made. People can feed themselves. They have food security. They really get together and have a conversation and do things they want to do in fulfilling their responsibilities towards their dignity. If that amounts to dictatorship, then what can I say? But as I said also earlier, we promised ourselves, Rwandans, that we will do more of that gives us good ranking in many aspects in Africa or globally. Well, and do less and less of what, if there are any fair criticisms, then we will pay attention to that, and you will see less of that, but certainly more of the progress, the things that we call progress. So that is my take on your question.
Okay, let's have another question. Shall we have one from Rugendo here?
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Arnito Rugendo from Red Pepper in Uganda. Yesterday, your Minister of Foreign Affairs spoke well about how Rwanda has decided or has been working very hard to ensure peace in the region and ensuring that there are no killings, of innocent people anywhere in the world. Just down here, your neighbor in Burundi, there is a crisis, people are dying. I want to hear your view about what is happening there and what Rwanda should do in the face of what is happening.
Well, until this point, Rwanda has not turned into a United Nations body, which is a global institution that actually is supposed to deal with that. People dying anywhere to a scale that justifies the global concern is really a responsibility of the United Nations primarily, and the big powers that govern that body. You've heard of the United Nations, the Permanent Five, the Security Council. They are the ones who decide that. For Rwanda, when we say or have said never again, we really mean within our means and limitations. Here it means our country, talking about ourselves. We have had that mess in our past. Said much as never again addressing our own situation for the future may relate to the wider and general principle of saying this shouldn't happen anywhere. It means Rwanda can make a small contribution towards that with others, but it is not Rwanda's responsibility to go and address these kinds of problems wherever they take place, even if it is with the immediate neighbor. First of all, those neighbors have responsibility themselves to resolve their problems. Short of that, if there is any intervention to be carried out, then it's done in a much wider context, whether it is the region or the continent or the world body, as I said, like the UN, then it's up to them. But so Rwanda can contribute in any way required, but this is not really. It's our concern, but it's not our responsibility.
Let's have Kagabo.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Jean Pierre Kagabo, nkorera urwego rw'igihugu rw'itangazamakuru RBA. Nyakubahwa Perezida, mu gihe abanyarwanda bishimira ubudatsimburwa bwabo mu myaka 21 ishize, baracyagaragaza guhitamo, baracyagaragaza kugera ku ntera ishimishije. Ni naho mwakomoje ku cyerekezo gishya mu itangazamakuru 2050. Nyakubahwa, iki cyerekezo umuyobozi uri visionary ni ubu gifite. Mushobora kudusogongeza kuri iki cyerekezo n'ibivumbikisho twaba dufite kugira ngo koko tuzakigeraho nk'abanyarwanda. Murakoze Mr. President.
Ndagerageza guhina amagambo ahubwo ibyinshi cyetse kunsubirishamo ibyo twaganiriye, ariko ngira ngo byasobanutse. Naho ubundi icyo navuga 2020 icyerekezo cyacyo cyo turakigerereye, hari ibimaze gukorwa bigaragara. Icyo navuga nuko ibimaze kugerwaho ari urugero rw'ibishobora kugerwaho. Ni ukuvuga rero ngo igihe tugenda neza mu cyerekezo cya mbere twihaye cy'2020, turi hafi kugera aho ngaho. Tumaze kugenda urugendo rutari rugufi ku cyerekezo 2050. Ubwo nabyo ni ukuvuga ko bishoboka twubakiye ku bimaze kugerwaho. Ngira ngo nicyo nabivugaho amagambo make.
Let's have a question from CCTV.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Jane Keo. I'm from CCTV Africa in Nairobi, Kenya. My question is going to be a follow-up in regards to what my colleague asked about Burundi. Now, does this mean when you speak about Rwanda's contribution, are you in support of the resolution by the African Union to send in troops to protect civilians, which they say they will do even without Burundi's government approval, and already we know the government there has refused? And secondly, Rwanda has pretty much been sucked into that debate of whatever is happening in Burundi, and lots of allegations, like reports of your government recruiting or supporting the recruitment of refugees to go fight inside Burundi. Let's hear what you have to say about that, please.
For the decision of the AU, I think you should ask the AU. But I'm not a spokesman of the African Union. The African Union made a decision within its own right, and those who were there to make the decision or to work out a formula to deal with that did what they did. We respect that. For me, the main idea is to say, can Burundi be assisted to find a political solution? I think basically that's a political problem. It's not primarily a military problem, even if we see many things happening there that may require use of some level of intervention to keep quiet the guns being used to kill people if that doesn't stop. I think that's what might have influenced the African Union to think along those lines. And maybe there isn't just one idea along which a solution can be found, but as I said, I guess as I see it, the main problem is political, and people are dying there. So that's it. For being sucked into that problem, I think there is an exaggeration, or sometimes you take the actual plain things and distort them and get something else. In a way, yes, some statements at one time or another originated from us here in Rwanda, expressing the concern in Burundi. Right from the beginning, it was from the beginning. I personally and some other officials of our government and reflecting our feelings, and we spoke out against what was going on in Burundi, and specifically because it was taking too many lives, even of Burundi, but it had the potential to spill over to us as neighbors, and there are many grounds on which we are really closely linked with Burundi. So if things go wrong in Burundi, to an extent, they affect Rwanda, one way or the other. In fact, as you have seen already, it has affected many Rwandans. They have been arrested, they have been beaten, they have been tortured. We still have some of them there, those who used to work there, who used to live there, who used to do all kinds of things, and some of the things were done in response to expressing ourselves openly, talking more about the concern and that there was need. In fact, we also said categorically that the first need is for Burundi to deal with their own affairs. We did not call for anybody to go and sort out Burundi's problems. No, we were appealing actually to Burundi that they need to address. And you can't say there is no problem. In fact, as one time I was told that what was happening there was no problem. But I said, no, we are having thousands of refugees running from Burundi coming here. You can't tell me that there is no problem. That is creating refugees. And probably then, if you say there's no problem here, but you're having thousands of refugees going to neighboring countries, I can only say one is in denial, or the fact that you have a problem and you don't see it. Maybe that is the main problem. The main problem is to have a problem and you don't see it. So it's along these lines that we really brought it up, and we weren't suggesting to them the solutions. We weren't saying people should come from outside, list ourselves to come and resolve Burundi's problem. No, we were only appealing to Burundi that they need to find a way to deal with their problems. And not only stop their own people being killed by institutions you could see that should be institutions of government, arresting and torturing our own people, but we were having refugees in their tens of thousands. They are here, they are still here. We have many officials of government that used to run from Burundi through here to other parts of the world. We have many in Europe. We have different parts of our region. There are others staying here. So this is a problem we did not invite or we wanted at all. We cannot benefit from a neighbor's problem. Absolutely not. Only that our neighbor's problem becomes our problem, in a sense, and we have to carry that burden. So there have been about accusations. I think this is just childish, talking about refugees being recruited or by what. We have heard those stories, and we have told these people, carry out investigations and find out who is gone where and how did they go there, and let us know. And we hear just NGOs, but you can see specific ones that are always interested in creating problems for us. They are hoping they can use this. It has had a political motivation. And then they even talk about child soldiers. I haven't seen a child soldier anywhere, any evidence of that. They talk about Rwanda giving them guns to go and fight in Burundi. I haven't seen any evidence, not the tiniest evidence to prove that. So it becomes a lot of politicking, as if that really provides any solution. I think the solution lies somewhere. And the moment Burundi don't sort themselves out and think they can blame their problems on other people or expect solutions to come from elsewhere, then that's how things continue to get worse up to this moment. So all we have to do ourselves is just to make sure we guard our borders and minimize the spillovers that may affect our own security, which we have done. We have, even for this bad test that has characterized the problem, by the way, made it clear to everyone that even with the proposed military contingent sent to Burundi, to Rwanda will not be part of that. We have troops, absolutely. We can deploy it in many parts of the world for peacekeeping, or many others here keeping our security and ready for the defense of our country, but we are not going to be part of that. So even the contribution I was talking about is in a different form. And we shall only provide it if and when it is required. We have no extra capacity to pass around to people who don't even want it. So mark that.
Should we have Goloba?
Yeah, thank you very much. Your Excellency, my name is Frederick Goloba Mtevi. I'm an independent researcher, but I also write a weekly column for the East African newspaper. I would like to speak about the recently concluded referendum. It was overwhelmingly, the yes vote was overwhelming both inside the country and outside it. And it seems to me as if Rwandans have thrown you a fairly serious challenge. And the challenge, in my opinion, is that they are telling you that they are not convinced that once you're gone, things are going to remain as good as they have experienced them during the period you've been in power to now. Now, how will you satisfy Rwandans if, and I'm assuming that you may accept their request, but assuming that that is true, how will you convince Rwandans or satisfy them that at some point it will be safe for you to leave, and that they will continue to enjoy whatever it is they are enjoying without you being in office.
Yes. As I said earlier in the conclusion of the Mishichirano, I said even where we have not succeeded, it's not for lack of trying. I think we have had this conversation within the RPF and in the wider Rwandan society. We have actually had a series of discussions, many of which I initiated, and telling them or raising issues exactly in that line, that for so many things we are doing, many of which we are doing right and making good progress, there are many other things we have not, in which we haven't succeeded yet. But exactly the need for us to build institutions and structures that provide long-term sustainable stability for our country is something we have to prioritize, even if we have prioritized it anyway for some time. And there were many points that were very valid and in all directions. And some of the people, for example, I remember were saying, well, that's a point we have always been thinking about, but anything is always a matter of time. It's like we have been dealing with the poverty for the last 21 years, but have we got rid of it? Is it because we don't want to get rid of it? Maybe there are so many things we haven't been able to put in place for different reasons, and so the question was, it's a matter of time. But we just don't have to take a step because we have to. We make a step at the right time and for the right reasons. Meaning, if we had to part with something, it has to happen because circumstances, the time, the things necessary to be in place have been put in place. So you put it on a balance and say, then I may have to do this, or I may not have to do it at this time. And for me, trying to convince anyone is as much as anyone else will have to convince themselves. So the debate has been continuing. It's never conclusive, but still you have to arrive at some conclusion of some kind that allows us to keep moving forward and obtaining those prerequisites that we want in place for many things or other things to happen. So I've been trying to convince, and I'm sure maybe others have been trying to convince themselves or even convince me in a different direction, different from my own thinking. So we still But collectively as a society, as a people, they have reached a conclusion. So we keep weighing things and talking to one another, and all we have to make sure is, as we do that, we don't lose track of things we have to do. We have to stay the course of continuing with the progress and with the stability, and then these other important decisions to be made also get to be made as we move forward. Yeah, so, but it has been a very interesting debate. It has been a very nonetheless, there are lines that have been drawn about our determination to keep moving forward our country and keep registering progress and for our sustainable development. And we shall continue grappling with these other issues. But the fight is here, the losing of it or the winning of that is still here. Some of these things here are being talked about outside, they are okay, they improve, they raise our blood pressure a little bit, but we finally we are in control. We take control of ourselves. Yeah.
Let's have Shaka, and then we shall come to a question here.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Shaka Kanma, and I'm with the Rwanda Focus newspaper. Mr. President, let's talk about quote-unquote third-term aspirations. It's a debate, it's a narrative that tends to be lumped together.
But is it really a third-term thing? Because I have seen people say I have to go on until 2030 something.
Well, I will frame it in the context of the entire region. Most foreign commentators lumping together everyone, Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, Congo, etc. And you do get the feeling, as someone who is receiving these comments and reading them and the narrative, it's like third term has become an end in itself. It's like it's just a senseless thing of greed for power and so on across the board.
Or has been no end at all.
Yes. So, Mr. President, what is your take on that?
Let me take you a little bit away from just the third term or something. I think all these add up to maybe problems of our continent, really, and the politics of how our continent has to be managed. Since when did the main problems of Africa add up to just third or fourth or fifth term, or how many terms somebody is serving? They may be just part of a bigger problem, but it's not the main problem of Africa. Africa's problem is governance generally that should be able to build on and leverage our resources, the people, the natural resources, and really answer the question that has been there for too long as to why Africa remains the poorest continent meaning its people are the poorest, yet it is the richest continent. The continent is richer than many other, as you know, the few continents we have in the globe. But the people remain poor. So how do we resolve this? Is it from serving one term or two or three or four or five? So I think the oscillation of views on this issue is a bit diversionary from the main point of governance, politics. And you can rule one term and you are a mess. You just hand one mess to another person. Well, you may get a prize for having ruled one term, but nobody rebukes you for having left a mess to your successor. So I don't understand this kind of politics, in my view. Or yes, people may rule for 2, 3, 4, 5 terms, they still leave a mess. So the longevity really isn't the issue. How long or how short, I don't think has been a major problem, much as this now keeps coming out as the main issue of Africa. So maybe we need, and this is why I have said, for me, it becomes a very difficult debate. I wish I was not standing in these shoes for this debate. I would have loved to have this debate even before I became president or later on when I'm out of office, not in office, because when you argue, when I express myself honestly on this point, there is a tendency for the valid points to get lost in the man actually being in the office. So maybe he's saying that because he's trying to justify something. So it's a problem in a way, but I will attempt to just give you my take, which is already part of that I have told you. Yes, but in our case, particularly in Rwanda, in actual fact, you can make your own research, or maybe you have already. We have come to this point where we are of having a constitutional review and people saying this, and mainly from those people and not from me. Absolutely not. In fact, if people wanted to change their decision, they say, you know what, we've wasted a lot of time, we have discovered that it is not necessary, you would see how I would jump on that without any hesitation, like I am hesitating on this one, or have been hesitating on this one. But again, it's not an issue of making a decision, yes or no. I'm a human being. I have played a part in trying to bring some changes to my country, and so I have a stake in it. I'm not a visitor here. I'm not just somebody passing through this country. I'm not a tourist in my own country. I'm somebody with certainly a big stake in what happens that affects everybody else, including me. So if I can do whatever is possible, and I always do it. And by the way, I will do it in office or out of office. Absolutely. As one time I did quite a lot when I wasn't in office. When I was in the bush fighting, I wasn't in office. I wasn't a president. I gave all I had, including putting a stake in my own life, like many young and old Rwandans. It's not because I wanted to be president. No. It's because I wanted something else. So I'm just trying to prove to you that I can still contribute to the well-being of my country in office or out of office. That is if, and quite so, my choices were not to be affected by other people's choices. If it was just my choice and say I want to do this, and that's what, that becomes much easier, a lot easier. But that's the situation. That is the situation maybe of the past. I'm in a different situation now. So as we try to deal with our own problems of our country, small country, Rwanda, with big problems, we also think about beyond our borders. We look at the region, we look at the continent, the fellow Africans, and how all of these things that happen in the rest of the world affect us. Naturally, it's part of it, and they are just intertwined. You can't easily isolate one from the other. That's why I brought up the argument saying, is it just the third term or one term thing that should dominate the global debate about Africa's affairs, or we should look at this in a much wider context? And maybe as we go along, we will discover what Africa can do and has been too late to do, that is beyond just the terms of these individuals, and which I think is characterized by this constitutional review and the debates around and so on and so forth.
Let's have Aduma from Nigeria, and then we'll come to the back.
Your Excellency, my name is Adamu Abu from the Guardian, Nigeria. Going by the outcome of the referendum approving an amendment, a review of the Constitution, I've noticed that the West and donor agencies, some of them, are not comfortable with it. Experience has shown us that when they are not comfortable with decisions taken by some African countries, they impose sanctions, they withdraw support aids, and I'm aware you have a huge vision you're thinking big for 2050. So how are you going to cope with this prospect of a backlash following the amendment of the Constitution?
So I thought you are still waiting for a mic.
Let me take the question again. We've just had a referendum, and the people have spoken. But some Western countries, donor agencies, have expressed opposition to it. And experience has shown us from past experience that when they are opposed to it, one of the ways they express their opposition is to impose sanctions, withdraw aid, support, and what have you. Now, I'm aware you have a huge dream, a huge vision for Rwanda as we march on. So how are you going to cope maybe when they start behaving the way they've done in other countries before? Like, that's my question.
When they start, I think, when did they not start behaving like that? Yeah, but as I said from the beginning, we have to live our lives in spite of what they do. If at any one time we surrender that right to them, to be determined by what they have to offer, and they offer a lot, absolutely. But you lose a lot more by being too sensitive to what they have to offer. If you just make comparisons in your mind of different scenarios and different cases, it's not because you have been short of too many obedient people to these superior ones. But sometimes you look at where they are, you wonder. So the question is, if you are too obedient and do whatever they ask, and you remain in a poor state, as I said, there are many unpleasant things on our continent, despite the wealth of our continent and so on. Then being too obedient stops having an incentive in it. For me, really. So I would rather try something else. If maybe something that gives me something. Isn't it? And I don't think also that the world is, or this world that is capable of putting sanctions or giving aid or so, is uniform. I don't think so. Sometimes you have decision makers who really make consequential decisions that affect people indeed, or that have affected people in Africa and so on and so forth. But, well, they are not there forever themselves. Or there are others who begin and who maybe think differently. It's not all uniform. I think there are some people, good people, who think correctly and who may even say, why don't we let people actually take care of themselves? Especially if what they are doing doesn't harm anyone and is good for them. But some of these people who are there and think like this have to be helped by we ourselves, actually showing that things after all can happen. We are not entirely and totally depending on outsiders' decisions and whatever they have to offer or deny us. So once there is that case, then I think they themselves are energized to play their part. So I think Rwanda, I don't see anything worse happening to us than what we have had already. I don't think anything can happen to us that is worse than what we had in 1994 and immediate years that followed. I don't see it. If anything can take us back to Stone Age, or can take us back to trenches to eat raw cassava and fried maize like we used to do, then maybe we can still do it. Yeah.
All right, we'll take a question from Anangwe, and then, sir, maybe if you permit, after that we could take maybe a bunch of 3 to 5 questions.
Sorry?
We'll take a question from the back, and then, if, with your permission, maybe after that.
Go ahead with your management and
okay, sir.
Let me know.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Anangwe?
you. Thank you so much. My name is Eugene Anangwe. I host a talk show on Rwanda TV called Debate 411. And my question, Mr. President, is that from this forum at the Umishchirano, most of the speakers who stood out were praising your leadership and your governance and way of doing business. And most of them were saying, tuwewe tumaze kutora yego, tutegereze yego yawe. For loosely translated as, we have done our part and we're just requesting and waiting for your yes. What would you tell them, or should we still keep waiting? Is the vote, how they voted, not convincing enough? And lastly, based on what you've said about participating in this debate, it's unfortunate, but we'd love to invite you on Debate 411 for other debates. Thank you.
Sorry?
Would love to invite you on Debate 411, my talk show, for other debates on other national...
I'm happy to be there.
Thank you.
Yes, just tell me. Try to find when I have time, and I would happily come there. On the first one, again, it's a simple answer. By the way, although we are ending 2015, we are still in 2015, isn't it? And this whole thing we are talking about has a decision point at 2017. So I'm really comfortable in my seat. At least the remaining 2 years are not disputed. So I'm comfortable there, and for as we go on, I'm just trying not to allow to be diverted from what we have to do with these debates that started far back in time. So we'll see. We'll keep debating, and even when I come to your show.
Let's take a question from Berna.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm called Berna, I work for the East African. My question is related to an issue you raised yesterday about criticism. You raised it again today, saying you will listen to legitimate criticism, but also you also talked about things are expected to get harder, not easier, way forward.
Yes.
My question is, from where you stand, what do you view as legitimate criticism of your government today? And going forward, what is expected to get harder? Thank you.
Okay, you want me to criticize my government? I think we've done a good job. But what I was saying is, on one hand, you see, a lot of talk is about, I have heard it from east, west, north, south. People talk about people's choices, people's decisions, people's aspirations as the bedrock of the kind of democracy we talk about, and so on and so forth, right? And then at the same time, when you have, unless you really tell me, these Rwandans either they are really mindless, heartless, and outright foolish, that they really don't know what they are talking about, so they don't know what they are saying. If you give me that proof, then I'll say, well, you know what? Then some people may have a point in saying something wrong has happened in Rwanda. These people have made a choice that is not founded. So the criticism, actually, I think, therefore, why I say it's not legitimate, is on one hand, you have all kinds of stuff that go on, even including lessons, people, you keep talking people. One time I asked a friend of mine, we are sitting there, we are hearing speeches, and one lead after another, and the topic is people. You must let people, you must listen to your people, you must do that. And then, after that, the same people are saying, or even leaders are saying, in Rwanda, this President Kagame, he is a dictator. And yet, the decisions and the choices of people are like this. So if you are telling me to listen to people, for example, which people are you talking about? So I asked one of these people, I said, by the way, which people are you talking about? When you kept saying, you must listen to your people, you must, And when my people tell me something, even before I have agreed with them, somebody is accusing me, So how can this be legitimate? I don't understand it. Maybe this developed world is so smart and so developed even in their own intellectual ability that they have discovered something that is too hard for us to comprehend. If you look at these statements, whichever, so many statements have been made, and I keep wondering, I said, what's this contradiction about? And of course, you have very well-learned and informed members of the media also who they start saying, has this world gone crazy? They even twist and turn and change. What people have said, they try to take it in a completely different direction from that the matter was discussed. So that is really the main point talking about, the legitimate criticism. And then they say, the referendum. Now the referendum comes out, they find, people are not coerced, they are not told what to say, they said it themselves, and then they say, you know what? No, but there was something wrong because it was done hastily. So I don't know what history means now. The referendum was done hastily. When they are the same people, for the last 2 years, have been complaining about this matter. So it becomes hastily. So when should it have come? I don't know. So the second question, the aspect was what?
Things are expected to get harder.
Yes. It's so simple. You've seen competitions when they're happening. The higher you aim, the more difficult it becomes to reach your target. Long ago in school, I used to be a high jumper. And they used to, they put at 1 meter, then 1.5 meters, then 1.6. The higher you go, of course, the higher you jump, the better. You may be a champion. But every centimeter that is, even a millimeter that is raised makes your high jump more difficult, isn't it? So this is what I was talking about in a very simple language. As we keep making progress, more progress makes our work not easier but harder, so, because we want more progress even. So that's really what I'm talking about.
Okay, let's take a question from Generali, and then we shall come here.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Ulimwengu. I come from Dar es Salaam. Let me take you back to political issues.
Sure.
And here I mean your performance, which has been really excellent and outstanding in many, many areas, as we have heard since yesterday. And yet there is something, and here I'm giving you maybe legitimate criticism.
Sure.
What happened to malaria?
Yeah, malaria became malaria. It just didn't want to go away. But you are right. Over time, we really had the fastest rate of reduction of malaria incidents that has been on record. I remember in 1 year alone, I think we brought it, the reduction went up to close to 70% just in 1 year, where the rest of the world that is afflicted with malaria were registering the highest 60s, then 40s, and so on. Still, the decline that is there is more visible, is significant in a sense that we are actually coming from a good record. Where we are still among the best in controlling it. But that explains a number of things. There are things that have got worse that are beyond our control. Like I think things yesterday, the Minister of Health tried to explain external factors, whether it is climate change or malaria mosquitoes becoming more resistant to the methods that were being used and so on and so forth. But I also think, and this is where there should be no excuse, and we shall have to re-examine ourselves and make sure that doesn't happen. I think our people in the system, I think, became a little bit lax. And it's like they've tasted good success. They think things will keep happening without staying the course with the push. And because I remember when it came to the initial significant progress that was made, we used to give households mosquito bed nets. And local leaders used to follow up on that, house to house, make sure that they are put to good use. They also found that actually some of these mosquito bed nets were received and just put under the bed or turned into fishing nets, or others used to, turn them into dress for weddings, or things like that. So certainly those don't prevent mosquitoes biting people and therefore contracting malaria if they are used like that. So we were able to prevent that and therefore had more people using proper mosquito bed nets and therefore benefiting from that. But I think over time our people must have declined in their follow-up, and that one I suspect also. And then in the whole system of procurement of this and that, drugs and distribution, and so the decline much as it's not too big, it shouldn't have been there. We should have registered more progress, not less, not decline. So that one we shall address the way it should be addressed. Even those other external factors will be looked into, and we see if there's something that can be done extra to try and mitigate that as well. And of course, we are warned by that decline in malaria management that it shouldn't happen in other sectors. Yes, we are going to be watchful. Yeah.
Let's have EGA, and then we'll come to Lampe over there.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida. Nitwa Ndayishimiye Jovin niwo ku gihe. Yewe ndabaza mu Kinyarwanda cyane cyane ku byerekeranye n'izi nzego z'ibanze tugiye kongera gutora. Izigiye kurangiza igihe zaranzwe no kwegura kwa hato na hato kwa meya.
Sure.
N'abandi babungirije bose byerekana ko hari imbogamizi zagiye ziboneka mu muryango marabibonye. Ingamba mufite niziye kugira ngo muri manda itaha yabo uko guhuzagurika kwabo ntikuzongere kubaho. Hanyuma icyo nashaka kubaza kindi uko mwemera ko ari genocide mu Burundi.
Okay. Icyambere reka mbanze musubize Kiburundi wenda. Kiburundi icyo tuzi ni uko abantu bapfa. Kubyita genocide ndibwira ko atari igikwiriye kuba ariyo. Uko imikorere y'isi imeze, uko abantu bakora, ntabwo ijambo ryanjye ku kindi gihugu ariyo ryagenderwaho. Habaho uburyo rero bubaho mu mibanire y'abantu y'ibihugu n'uburyo ibyemezo bifatwa, ku buryo abantu bagera ku rwego rwo kuvuga ngo ahangaha ikiriho kihaba ni ubwicanyi bakwita uru rwego rwa genocide. So urwo rwego rero ntabwo ari uruhitamo, nta nubwo icyo gisobanuro ari gitanga. Ariko mbajije ngo ariko mu Burundi hari ubwicanyi, nakubwira ngo burahari, kuko ibyo nibigaragarira buri wese. Ariko ibintu bifite ingaruka z'amategeko cyangwa z'ibyemezo bigomba gufatwa atari nanjye bifata, bigira uburyo byemezwamo. Bakaba bavuga bati kuri iyi rero numbaza ko ubona hari umutekano muke ku bantu, abantu bapfa, ndetse bamwe bicwa n'abakwiriye kuba babarinda. Icyo nakubwira ngo birahari. Ariko iby'uko ari urwego rwo kurwita genocide, ibyo ntabwo ari igihe babihitamo, at least not now. Ntabwo ari ubu ngubu nabyita ntigiye wenda cyareba ibyo ndeba. Inzego zibishinzwe zikwiye kuzabigena, niyo byaba ari akarere kagiye kubigena. Ni ukuvuga ngo akarere gashyiraho uburyo bubyiga bukagera kuri iryo zina ry'igikorwa. Ntabwo byapfa guha umuntu umwe gusa agahaguruka akabyita atyo bikaba bibaye byo. Ku cya kabiri, ku cya mbere rero babanje abayobozi bagiye kurangiza igihe, abandi bazaza. Erega nta gihe kizabaho cy'abantu badakora ibyo badakwiye gukora, baba bavuyeho baba n'abazaza. Icyangombwa ni uko habaho uburyo baza inshingano bashinzwe. Nicyo kintu cya mbere cyangombwa, nicyo gihoraho. Naho iby'uko abantu bazagira batya bakanyereza umutungo bagatwara umutungo wabo bayobora, abo bantu bazahoraho iteka. Nta nubwo rero navuga ngo abavuyeho bose nicyo cyabaranze, ariko byagiye bibaho. Abantu bamwe niyo baba ari 5 muri 50 babayeho. Ntabwo rero umuntu yavuga ko aricyo cyaranze abo bantu 50 bose. Hari n'ibindi byiza bakoze, ariko waranzweho ikosa rifite ingaruka ku bayobora, ari umuyobozi bimugiraho ingaruka. Kwegura nabo bandi bazaza nibakora nk'ibyo abo bakoze bajya kwegura, nabo bazegura. Abanyarwanda ni benshi nyine bagumya bahindura. Iyo badahinduye imikorere yabo barahindurwa. Iyo badakoze ibyo bakwiye kuba bakora, hari ingaruka bibagiraho, kitari ukwegura gusa ngo nicyo kintu kimwe kiriho.
Hello, can we have Henry?
Thank you, Your Excellency. Henry Mukasa, I work with Daily Monitor, Kampala. Since you have delayed your answer of yes or no after the referendum.
Sorry?
Since you have decided to delay your answer of the outcome of the referendum, whether it will stand or not, when is the new revised constitution coming into effect, or you have already signed it?
When is which?
The revised constitution coming into effect.
I think it's any time towards 2017, but more towards closer to now than towards 2017.
Okay, second, I wanted to get a clarification on the situation in Burundi. The criticism on social media where you are active and other fora is that that the leaders of Africa and maybe the UN are slow in taking action, just like there was criticism that the leaders of the world were slow in taking action when the genocide was happening begin to happen in Rwanda. So not like putting it to you, but in general picture of the African leaders, do you think they have done enough to keep the situation from degenerating? And maybe giving us a picture on the situation of refugees that have come to Rwanda, the numbers and how you are coping.
Mm. Well, I think always in a situation like that, where people are suffering, doesn't matter which people, but generally when people are suffering, you want to address that suffering as quickly as you can. So from that standpoint, I think maybe people could do better. I think African leaders or African institutions, maybe we could have done better, and we need to do better, all of us. I think still something should be done, and end suffering anywhere. It's not just in Burundi. You see a lot of suffering across our continent, and we need to resolve that. For refugees, I think we now have close to 80,000. Is it? In the refugee camp itself.
We have about 72,000.
72. Well, it's closer to 70 than 80. So about 70, that's 72,000. But 72,000 are the ones in the camp, in the refugee camp. But there are other thousands scattered in the city here, and some people had friends, they had relatives living here, they had the money to rent homes and stay in that without going to... All those, I think, there are another several thousands who, although we have asked that they register with those responsible for refugees, and also our own selves who want to make sure that we minimize either the damage to them or the damage they want to or may cause back home, just as a way of management. So we have this problem. It's always not easy. At one point, when there were these accusations coming up, and now, every now and then, we really had a discussion with the UNHCR, and we were saying, we need to rein in these people, strictly, so that we don't allow any misreading or interpretation of anything. Even going beyond and saying some of those, say, who are called leaders, either who used to be in the military or who had been there long before these problems, some of who have fled, and also either through here, as I said, there are many living in Belgium, they came through here, or France, or families of these leaders, the judges, the parliamentarians, and so on. We said, in case they may want to do anything, best here that adds fuel to the fire going on there. We may even contemplate, actually, I don't know what, something close to being imprisoned, putting them under detention to make sure that we cut off any of this stuff that may. But maybe we haven't. I don't know if we continue to see anything that, or if we saw anything that is continuing to drag us into things we don't want like that, we may have to take such action.
Let's take a question from Lambert, then we'll have Léon, after which we shall take 2 last questions.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Jean Lambert Gatare, nkorera radio yitwa Isango Star. Nyakubahwa, mwabishubije mu rurimi rw'amahanga rw'icyongereza, ariko burya abenshi nabumva ikinyarwanda kandi bategerejeho igisubizo gitomoye. Nyakubahwa, murebye uburyo abanyarwanda bitabiriye ririya tora rya referendum, biragaragaza yuko bavuga bati turashaka umugabo witwa Kagame ko ashobora gukomeza kutuyobora. Mwabahaye kado ya Noheli n'ubunani mukabibemerera bakazabirya batuje. Kuki mugumisha mu rujiro Nyakubahwa? Murakoze.
I think kado babonye y'ubunani nuko batoye mu ituze bakagira uburenganzira bwo kuvuga ibyo bashaka, kandi nkaba ntarababwira no. I think iyo ni kado, well, ushobora kuba itaryoshye cyane nka za kado zindi tumenyereye, ariko I think it's a good thing. And I think kandi ibitekerezo byagiye bijya hagaragara, ibiganiro byagiye biba n'ejo n'uyu munsi mu mushyikirano, birerekana ko ibyo bavuze byumvikanye. So nta kuvuga ngo wenda ntiyatwumvise neza cyangwa ntiyagize ati, ariko nabyo kutareka ngo ibintu bidutware mu bindi by'urusaku n'iki, dukomeza inzira yo gukora ibyo tugomba kwikorera, ngira ngo turacyari kumwe.
Léon.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Léon Nzabandora, nkaba nkorera Kigali Today. Hari ikintu mwavuzeho mugenda mukigaruka ariko cyane mu ndimi z'amahanga, ndavuga ntigarukeho kugira ngo n'abanyarwanda bacyumve. ndetse
ntabwo
ari ukubasubizamo nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika kuko birajya kuba byisumbuyeho gatoya. U Rwanda rwagize icyo ruvuga ku bijyanye na position yabyo kuba ku kibazo cy'i Burundi, mwana bigarutseho hano, ariko nk'uko tubizi dufite akarere hano, byinshi mu bihugu by'akarere nta kintu byari byagira icyo bivuga ku Rwanda nako ku bibazo biri kuba i Burundi, none ikibazo kikaba kigira gutya. Bisaba iki kugira ngo akarere kagire icyo gakora ku kibazo cy'u Burundi?
wababajije kuri mu karere ntabwo nzi ibyo akarere cyangwa buri muntu mu karere ashaka gukora, ibyo birabareba. Ku by'u Rwanda ngira ngo kuko dutekereza, narabivuze n'ubushize, navuze ko dutekereza ko ikibazo cy'i Burundi abantu bapfa, ibibazo biriyo bihereye no ku Barundi ubwabo, hakwiye gushaka umuti, ariko bagafashwa n'abandi bakwiye kuba bafasha, kuko niba byarananiranye kugira ngo ubwabo babyirangirize, ubwo ni ukuvuga ngo bashobora gufashwa n'abandi bantu. Ndibwira rero ko abandi bantu babafasha, abambere twabanzirizaho ari abo mu karere. Byaba bidakunze bikagenda byicuma bikajya n'ahandi, ariko ikibazo cyo kikabonerwa umuti, kuko guhangayika ku Burundi n'ibiberayo bifite ingaruka no ku Rwanda. Ntabwo twabyifuza ko byakomeza, usibye ko tutanabyifuza ko byanaba.
Can we have two very last questions? I will take a question from Chimp Reports and then the gentleman in the back.
My name is Gael Zumhame. I'm the editor, Chimp Reports in Kampala. I think this is the last one on Burundi.
Chimp Reports is a television, is a paper, it's
a news website, Your Excellency.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There are reports that FDLR are involved in the violence in Burundi. Are you worried that they could use Burundi as a launch pad to attack Rwanda? Thank you so much.
Well, I heard about that. I heard about long ago. It's not a new thing, I'm sure. As a journalist, you probably have yourself heard that for a long time, even at the beginning of this crisis or slightly before, as that being part of the problem. But I wish it turns out to not be true, because I think it shouldn't even be a problem for Burundi. If there are our problem, so they shouldn't be Burundi's problem. So if there is any truth in that, it wouldn't be good for Burundi, because FDR will do in Burundi what they have been doing wherever they have been, or that relates to their history. So that's not a good thing. And as I said earlier, we've been careful to make sure that some of the things in Burundi don't spill over to us, so we take precaution in any case, whether FDR or anybody, we prepare to take care of our own and make sure our security doesn't get in any way affected.
Let's have our last question, please.
Okay. Your Excellency, I'm called Suhail Mugabe from NTV Uganda, and my question is going to drag you a little bit into Uganda's politics. As we speak right now, there are campaigns going on to elect Uganda's next president a few months from now. That's in February. And already we have noticed there's been some specks of violence, and also there's a lot of tension that is brewing due to this electoral period. What message and what do you have to say of the situation? And
Sorry?
What do you have to say of the situation that's currently taking place in Uganda and the electoral politics? And also, what message do you have for the people in Uganda and also some of the many Rwandans who are living in Uganda?
Do you really think I'm interested in getting deeply involved in or dragged into Uganda's politics or any countries for that matter? Any other countries? I don't think so. But whenever there are things like that going on, I always wish the people all the best they can expect, irrespective of their differences in politics and what they are competing for, which is political power. I'm sure the Ugandans are mature enough to know how to resolve their political differences in the electoral processes, and the outcome will be what Ugandans deserve. But if that was to result into any disturbances for the Ugandans, I'm not saying that's what they deserve. I think they deserve stability. They deserve leaders that will either continue to work for the development and the good future of Uganda. And I think Ugandans, as they go into the elections, I'm sure everyone has this at the back of their minds, that they want what is best for them, what is best for Uganda, and that can only come with the result that is stable, that maintains the integrity and stability and security of Uganda and safety of Ugandans.
Thank you very much, sir. With your permission, we could maybe stop here.
But if you want to know my preference, I always maybe I've been working with the incumbent government and leaders very well, so I wish them well. Right? Good. Are we okay?
Yes, sir. I thank you very much for your time, and I think on behalf of the members of the press here, we'd like to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, and I wish all of you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. All the best to you and your families.